Okay, thank you. Good morning, everyone. I know many of you. It's very nice to see you all here in the room. We've heard quite a bit about GlobalABC. I mean, it's been quite a journey, I have to say, for all of us. And I think we are in a very critical moment now with the GlobalABC because we have, I think, had a lot of traction over the last few years. And I'm not going to present the agenda. You all have it in. I mean, you probably saw it on the computer for a little while already on our website, so I don't think I need to go through these different slides. What I want to talk about now is maybe my team first. So this is basically the colleagues that... These are my colleagues that are here in the Secretariat. I remember a lot of colleagues will remember Nora before, Nora Sturr. Nora Sturr was one of the colleagues that's been working on the GlobalABC for many years. She has left us, and Hanan has joined us. Hanan has jumped on a running train, and I think she's doing an excellent job working with all of us. I've been personally a little bit like in and out lately because I've been giving additional responsibilities over the last few months, but she has taken the bull by the horns and taken the team forward and worked with all of you to be here together now and actually to organize a number of things that I will be talking about earlier. Malia, that you all know, has been organizing here this session, but pavilions before already. Very instrumental in the Global Climate Forum that we had before. So definitely very happy to have her in my team also. Critical. Antara recently joined us to actually replace our colleague Yijun, who was working on communications. Communications is a critical part of the GlobalABC, it's very important. And I'm very happy now that we also have Antara on board. And of course, Gulnara, who is my boss and who we work jointly together to take this whole adventure forward. But what you see here on the screen is not the only people that are working on the GlobalABC. We have a number of other colleagues that are actually working in our team and coming from other teams in UNEP to really support this work. And I think we're about 10 people and a few also of our consultants that are dedicated to the buildings breakthrough, like Dima, that many of you have met, Clément, that is working on the ICBC. So it's really a joint effort. But I have to say, when I show this slide, I say this is more like the Secretariat. And currently, the only person that is actually funded with GlobalABC funding directly is really Hanan as a staff member. And so it means that basically in UNEP, there is one staff member that is funded through the GlobalABC. For the rest, we have a team of mainly consultants and other staff that are actually. So one of the things that I want to say is that, I often hear colleagues coming saying, you're doing an incredible job with a very small team, which is true. But, we need to strengthen this team because if we want to do more, we need a stronger team. So I just wanted to briefly introduce that because I think it's a very important element, at least for me, who is also managing this team. Oh, and these are my slides. So, and now it's not working. Can you go to the next slide? I don't know why it's not. Go to the next. You can. I guess I went back. Okay, we want to talk now in this session specifically about what we have achieved over the last year, mainly between 2023 and 2024. We will have a number of colleagues and members of the GlobalABC that will be intervening this session. But going to the next slide, I will maybe discuss on the most important thing here is that last year I remember we said, okay, we need about 2 years ago, we said we need another year to rethink a little bit. We had presented a strategy in Helsinki. We had reviewed our strategy based on the theory of change that also Roland mentioned earlier. But in the meantime, we had the buildings breakthrough suddenly. And then we had the forum where we had the Déclaration de Chaillot and the Intergovernmental Council for Buildings and Climate. And because of that, we needed to spend a bit of time more rethinking about the narrative that we bring forward as the GlobalABC. So I'm going to talk a bit about what are the impacts in a way on our narrative. But before that, I will very briefly, talk about what we did over the last year. And I'm not going to dive much into the details of this because actually over the next session, there will be actually more opportunities to have more information here. But of course, we've been continuing very strongly doing the advocacy for buildings and construction. mentioned earlier, the pavilion is one of the places in COP. It's now the 4th year that we've been doing a pavilion at COP, and it's becoming always bigger, more successful, and more people that actually really have a strong interest in the building and construction sector, and it helped us attracting also more members. We are participating in regional climate weeks, a number of other events. I'm not going to dive more into these details, but maybe one interesting point here that I want to mention on this specific slide is that we have 26 new member countries that have joined. And we've always said, like, we need to grow the membership of not only countries. We're looking at growing the membership, especially from the Global South. And actually, most of these 26 countries are coming from the Global South. And this comes through the process that we have had with the ICBC and the meeting that we had in Paris, the Déclaration de Chaillot. That's how we brought this number of new countries on board in the GlobalABC. And this is really important, I think. So we've also increased the number of members overall from the Global South. And this is also very important, but we want more. We want more of the Global South to be represented in our community. Now I think now it's 8 years already that we are doing a global status report, tracking progress, setting targets. It's one of the real important parts of our work. We will have a session during this 2 days, where we'll be talking specifically about the buildings breakthrough and how we want to kind of make it a better and stronger and new building GSR. And that's a very important element also, I think, going forward. Buildings breakthrough, you all know, but we are the ones also who are supporting the IEA and the climate champions to actually write the buildings chapter in the breakthrough report, in the breakthrough agenda report. And we're working, of course, our hubs, our members are very active in supporting the work that we're doing, developing a number of guidance that we're putting forward. Setting priorities is one of our other important elements that we're working with under the GlobalABC. The roadmaps have been there for a number of years, but we actually have a roadmap coordination group where we brought together all the members and all the people that have been working on country roadmaps to think, okay, what is actually the guidance that we need to develop so that the roadmaps can be better aligned to the realities of countries? Because we came at the beginning with a global roadmap. We came with some regional roadmaps, and then we tried to translate them at country level. But of course, we realized that it's not that easy to translate something global, regional to actually a country context. And so we have put our thinking together to actually create an approach, a step-by-step approach that actually builds on the experience and is actually much more better tailored today to support the countries with developing their roadmaps. And the roadmaps are a very important element today for a number of countries to actually integrate stronger targets and measures on buildings and construction in their NDCs. We're also working under the UNFCCC on some knowledge products, for example, now with the Technology Executive Committee on buildings. So we're also positioning ourselves, the technology agenda under the UNFCCC needs to understand that buildings is critical. We've already mentioned it in the number of the people that have been speaking here. So knowledge products is still a very important thing to put forward. There is guidance needed. And we're also, and that's a very critical part, is that we need to work with the whole supply chain. When we started this whole thing, we knew the complexity of this sector. No, there's so many different actors that are working in so many different areas, but all these people need to work together. If all these people do not work together, we cannot change the sector. So that's where also the genesis, in a way, of the GlobalABC comes from. We need to create a community that represents from all the way from the planning process of a building to all the way at the end of your building. What do you do with your building? And yeah, so all the process and all the actors involved in that process actually need to work together. So this is just a very short snapshot on the work that we've been doing and that we're continuing to take forward. And I'm going to, if it wants to move, I think I need your help over there. Okay. Again, I'm not going to dive into that. We will have specific sessions around the buildings breakthrough and the ICBC, and I know we're already a little bit late with things, but of course, this year under the breakthrough, we have actually been doing additional roundtables, because under breakthrough, there are 4 roundtables a year to take the priority actions forward. And then we had the establishment of the ICBC, which is probably one of the most prominent things also over the last year, with a number of meetings confirming the members, and we had an inaugural meeting, ministerial meeting at COP30, where actually it showed the success and that the countries are behind it, and the strong support that we have specifically for the agenda. And now we are diving more into the technical meetings to define more clearly what are the real priorities that we want to work with. Again, this is something that we will be discussing later. And let me come to probably what I wanted to discuss a little bit more about with you. So when we look at the GlobalABC, like we said, okay, it's basically a multi-stakeholder community. And what we have created here was to bring the different members together under a number of hubs, action groups. And now we, of course, have a number of flagships that we identified that we're working on. And we're basically working with all these stakeholders to feed into the GlobalABC around the priorities that I showed earlier when we are talking about advocacy, providing some guidance, policy reports, sector tracking with the building GSR, and then looking more about how we push the implementation. So this is really the community working together. This is really where we are coming together to actually provide, as a global community, what needs to happen, or what actually the countries and the different stakeholders can take up to implement the transformation of this sector. And we have two main targets. On the one end, of course, we have the government. And when we talk about governments, I should say it's not only the national government, it's also the subnational governments. It's really important to have this multi-level governance in this whole framework. And on the other hand, we have all the value chain stakeholders, which on the big part is, of course, how do we engage all the private sector actors, the ones that are actually really constructing the buildings and doing the projects, into cooperating with us, and also taking our recommendations into account into their work. And so this is, I would say, the overall kind of structure that we have. We have a number of ways where we have channels in a way for us to input the work that we are doing as a GlobalABC community. Today, with, of course, having the buildings breakthrough. So all the work that we do with this community in our different hubs can be brought into the buildings breakthrough, can be brought into the Intergovernmental Council for Buildings and Climate, which basically are two frameworks that have been very well captured, I would say, in the drafting of the Déclaration de Chaillot. The Déclaration de Chaillot is basically building on all the work that we've been doing for a number of years, but also very clearly makes the link with the buildings breakthrough, which was initiated shortly before. We also try to engage with the larger multilateral fora on the government side, so especially at the COPs, but also G20 or other platforms that are actually working on topics that are close to our work. And then all this basically helps accelerating the action and helps a number of the governments to adopt, hopefully, some of the recommendations that we will put forward, and have some sort of agreement also on what are some of the common principles that we need to push to actually achieve what we would say low carbon, resilient, and efficient buildings. And on the other hand, we also work then through the private sector-led bodies and initiatives. I mean, Roland was here earlier, developed the Market Transformation Action Agenda, which is very much aligned also again with the Déclaration de Chaillot and also the Buildings Breakthrough, and actually looks at how can we actually engage all these different actors to support the implementation of these larger frameworks that we have put together. And it's a loop, because every time we work, we basically want to make sure that we build on the experience that comes from our different partners, and we continue improving. I think in general, in reality, what we do is a lot of experimentation. And if we don't experiment, we won't be able to progress. So we need to do some experimentations and make some changes, but we also need to learn from what we are doing, and we need to adjust. So it's a constant improvement process in which we need to work. So that, I would say, is the ecosystem that I think we have been able to create with the GlobalABC. And I have to say again that I think when we had the forum last year, I was impressed by the fact that our community, everybody could come together in a very short time frame to have a very successful event that we established in Paris, but it wouldn't have been possible without creating this community before. So everybody that was in the community actually made sure that we had very strong sessions during that event. And that shows also that if we all come together, we can show that actually we can make a difference and we are a driving force. So moving a little bit to the next slide. I was talking earlier, multi-stakeholders group. Multi-stakeholders groups is basically what we have established under the GlobalABC. Today we have, this list is here, more than 10 of our hubs and working groups and coordination groups on the roadmaps. And this is where our community works and comes together. This is where everyone here, and maybe not everyone, but most of the people engage to actually help thinking about the priorities that we want to take forward, and actually make sure that what we discuss, we kind of help putting it in practice. So this is, I would say, the motor in many ways of the GlobalABC, and where we actually create the platform for the stakeholders coming together. Now, under the GlobalABC, we've been working at the beginning, we had identified 5 work areas. We had identified policies, capacity building, market transformation, finance, and data as key areas to work on. And then at the same time, we started working on roadmaps where we were thinking about a holistic approach for actually transforming the sector, which was looking at 8 priority themes where we were talking about urban planning, new and existing buildings, energy, renewable energy, energy efficiency, operations of buildings, materials, resilience, and then we were basically shaping around that. How do you kind of holistically look at the sector to make it different or improve it? And this is basically translating here in what we call our transformation drivers. You know, the transformation drivers are basically different areas that we as the GlobalABC are working on, and that we have identified together as the key areas that we need to work on to actually support the governments and also the other part of the stakeholders that we work with. And that is, I think, really, this is our common work. This is where we got. This is where we said, this is where we need to focus on and where we need to work on. And if you look at this, oops, sorry, I'm using 2 slides. Well, this was basically what we used to build together the Déclaration de Chaillot. The Déclaration de Chaillot was building on all the work that we've been doing at the GlobalABC and trying to translate it in a declaration that we could put forward to the governments that actually would translate what we think as a community is important. And today, we have a declaration that puts forward a number of the key elements that you can see here, coming with principles and objectives, ensuring the advocacy that we've been doing since the beginning, continuing the awareness, putting forward the best practices, which is very critical, supporting standard certifications. We were talking about building codes, governance, the regulation, finance. Everybody knows finance is critical, but finance also needs to be reassured that actually what they are investing in is actually going to bring the results. We need to show also that we can lead by example, and especially work with government partners on the public procurement side. But in general, we need to actually push the procurement. It's not only the public procurement, but showing by example is a very important element, I would say, for government institutions, while at the same time, if we call it in general procurement, that would be very important also for all our private sector partners who are here. Research and deployment is still critical in this sector also. We know that a lot of the solutions actually exist. You know, a lot of technologies are out there to make the change happen, and they are proven and they need to be deployed very quickly. But at the same time, we still see a lot of challenges, and we also still see a lot of potential in terms of bringing new things when we talk about digitalization, maybe, but also when we think about materials in general, where there are a lot of opportunities also to work on new novel materials that actually can also support the decarbonization of the sector overall. And then capacity and skills. Capacity and skills is critical. I mean, today, even if I'm in France, and we have a regulation about a thermal regulation for our buildings, and if I want to do an insulation and find someone that can bring the kind of green solutions for me, it's actually not that easy. And so we really need to also make sure that this whole, let's say, all the actors that are working in the sector change, that they actually start looking more at how can they bring sustainability in the approaches that they are putting forward for us. And, oh, sorry, I'm clicking on my computer while I should click on. And this is to show how this aligns with the buildings breakthrough. So when we developed the Déclaration de Chaillot, we also made sure that actually we were responding to the different priority actions that we have put forward under the buildings breakthrough. And this is the framework basically for us that we are working under. This is what we want to see happening and what we want to see changing. Then, of course, we are not alone, and we are working. There are a number of other initiatives that are existing globally that we need to engage in. I mentioned it earlier. Of course, all the UNFCCC processes. We have our friends in UNEP for the Cool Coalition that are working on cooling. What is cooling? Cooling is mostly, I would say, thermal comfort in buildings. So it's very closely building related. Building to COP, an alliance that came together also to push the agenda specifically under the UNFCCC and work with the climate champions. And then we have a number of larger initiatives under cities where, when we talk about the city, a city is mainly composed of buildings. And so it's really important in those larger initiatives like CHAMP, Surge that were launched in the different COPs that we actually also can play a role and show that we are the ones who are actually leading thinking in the buildings and construction community. This is, of course, not an exhaustive list. There can be many more. I think what is important is that, we need to kind of many of these actually are partners that we already work with and are engaged with us. But what we would like to see is actually more of those, especially more of those implementation projects that come and link to the GlobalABC and actually show that actually what they want to do is aligned with what we are doing under the GlobalABC and that they support the implementation of our vision. So this is a call for all the people here that are doing projects, that you should actually, we are not going to take your projects away from you, but we just want to make sure that we can show that our community is actually working on the implementation and that we can link it also more closely to the GlobalABC. And just to show that all this links, between each other, we as the Secretariat are trying our best, to kind of make sure we all work together and deliver on this. But this is basically, these slides were basically to show you a little bit the narrative. And I hope it worked because it's not that easy to explain this. But so so yeah, I'm actually going to stop here just to maybe hear a bit from anybody in the room that wants to react or ask a question, because I think this is something that we all need in a way to understand, and I would say also possibly to agree to also. So just opening the floor for anybody that wants to react, come in.
Good morning, everyone. First of all, congratulations with the presentation. I'm Her Highness Princess Abzejigma from Burkina Faso and serving as the co-chair of the Paris Committee on Capacity Building. And when I was looking at your presentation, I said, where are we? I think the Paris Committee on Capacity Building also can serve as one of your levers to reach out. And in my capacity as well as the lead coordinator of adaptation committee committee for the G77 in China. I think we can have a follow-up conversation to see how we can take your work further. And I think that capacity building is critical, the means of implementation, and also to see the ongoing global goal on the adaptation indicators. I don't know if your work is also informing that GGA. So that will be, once again, thank you for your achievements and also commitment. Thank you.
Concerning the GGA indicators, so we have just 1 week to finalize the proposal. So we'll deliver that probably this week or maybe at the beginning of next week to be included in the proposal that will be done for the SB 62. I'm sorry, it's quite technical. And after maybe to be included in the proposal to the COP30. So, but that's just the beginning. Thank you.
And just
who's really working here.
Just to add, I mean, we are, of course, very open to engage. I mean, as I was saying, this is one list, which definitely doesn't give justice, you know, to the number of initiatives that are out there. And, you know, we didn't really have the time maybe to put them all in there, but definitely be happy to look at potential ways to also bring the work that we're doing to your community under the capacity building specifically.
I was just going to say to please join the capacity building discussion tomorrow for the buildings breakthrough. We would really welcome your participation.
Thank you. Thank you, Jonathan, for the presentation. My name is Rasmi Hamze. I'm the Executive Director of Jordan Renewable Energy and Energy Efficiency Fund. We are happy to cooperate during the last 5 years with the GlobalABC, and we are happy about all the announcements lately being launched from Paris to the COP28, 29. This is very important, actually, process starting 9 years ago, and now I think the framework that Jonathan presented is very, very comprehensive and efficient. And I think 9 years takes, it seems a long time. However, now I think everybody on board from all the alliance and members. And I think the last 2 years at the COPs been very important announcement related with buildings. And today I think and I feel most of the countries, they are already paying the right attention for the building issues. From the climate change in general, you know, elements until the details of heating and cooling issue and the building materials. This is very important. From Jordan, in Jordan, actually, we are taking care of all the documents related with codes, related with the private sector role and the governmental umbrellas for monitoring and evaluations, as well as paying the right attention for financing issue. However, still capacity building and knowledge transfer between all the alliance is very, very important, and we need to pay more attention about financing. Yes, it's very important. We need to see more from the countries itself. We need to see national initiatives in order to show actually that they are, you know, serious, taking things with the right directions related with the building through. Congratulations, Jonathan. It's very important framework. I think this is going to lead all the alliance to another area, hopefully.
Thank you, Rasmi, for this very supportive work. You've been with us for quite some time now. So, and of course, it's not only me; it's the creation of also my colleagues here, and especially, I would say, the steering committee and the co-chairs with whom we have worked well to try to think specifically about how we can present this new narrative to all of you in this framework. So I'm glad it resonates. Just looking if there are any other. Nasra. You have a microphone.
Firstly, good morning, and thank you so much for the wonderful presentation and all the efforts that have gotten us here. Briefly, for those of you who don't know me, my name is Nasra. I'm the CEO of the Kenya Green Building Society, but I also serve as a member of County Assembly in Nairobi County. So firstly, I'm really proud of the work that's already been done and the efforts to drive this industry in the direction it's going. My only input to this is we don't lack the technical as an industry. What we lack, or we haven't done so well in, is highlighting the story. What's our story? What's the relational component of all this? Because ultimately, this important piece of work needs to have our champions, the decision makers, who can tell it in a way that funders can understand, in a way that then can allow us to have regional mobilization. When we talk about having a lot of the Global South being part of this conversation, we need to understand what does this work mean in the context of the Global South, so that when our decision makers are talking, they're essentially saying that as an industry, our work is centered on dignity and legacy, and the people, for example, of the Global South being empowered to shape the cities, the buildings that will create the legacy of the future now. So that's my only input. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Nasra, and I think this is well noted. I think the narrative is critical, and the narrative, of course, the narrative is important to bring it back to the people. No, why are we here? Because we want to improve the buildings for the people, so that people can live comfortably as much as possible, and as you say, in dignity. And that's also why I think earlier Gulnara in her opening speech was mentioning residential. I think one of the realities currently when I look at green buildings is most of the green buildings are nice office buildings, beautiful shopping malls, very nice high-end resorts, or very high-end like residential buildings. And that's where it stops. As whenever you want to go into actually a sustainable building, I mean, for all the rest of the people out there, it's very difficult to find them. Of course, there are a few initiatives here and there, and maybe it's just starting, but that means that this is really the area also where we need to make sure that we work. So, and we need to help, of course, I think the different leaders, the leadership in general. I would say governments are important, but I think also the other leaders also need to bring the narrative. So I would hope that also now with having our Intergovernmental Council on Buildings and Climate, all the conversations, of course, that we also have under the Buildings Breakthrough will really help to empower, I would say, many of those decision makers that are with us to actually take the message more clearly also to the country, and then also to the other stakeholders that actually need to support this. And there again, talking about finance, I mean, if we are not able to talk clearly about what we do and how we transform to finance people, and if we are not able to kind of translate what we say in a way that the finance community can understand, then we will have difficulties also to mobilize the finance behind this. I guess since we were a little bit delayed already, and I don't know if we are even more delayed because of me now, maybe I will hand over the floor to the next part, and to talk more about our achievements, and then I will invite Hanan to come in and jump here.
Thank you, Jonathan. In 10 seconds, I've been around for 10 months and it's my first in-person meeting, but I feel like I've known 80% of you already. So I just want to say thank you for how engaging all our members are. It's incredible, like the relationships we've built by just working together online. So thank you all for this. It was a great experience so far. So here, we've heard about the achievements of GlobalABC from Gulnara, from Jonathan, the big pieces, the big flagship work that we do. But in this presentation, we're going to go through a little bit more in detail into the results that we got from the member survey that we sent out a few weeks ago to all of you. So what is the point of the survey? It's for us to understand what you're all doing. It's for us to be able to be up on top of any innovations that you've come up with. And it's for us to showcase this to the Assembly and to the world. So we have 360 plus members. We've received 80 responses. So I'm going to go around the room later during the next 2 days and ask you all to really take this survey seriously. It is really important to you, to us, and it's what allows us to get the word out on what we're doing. And it's what will allow you also to try to think, okay, actually I want to make a link with this organization based on what they're doing. Oh, I want to replicate what they're doing in this country into my country. So really do take this survey seriously and tell us if you think we can simplify it, improve it so that it's easier for you to respond. So the survey really focuses on trying to understand what the Alliance has been doing on our 6 strategic indicators. These are targets that were set a couple of years ago with the timeline to 2030. So I'm not going to go through them now, but we will go through each of them together. So the first one is, in our view, the most significant one. It's a target that wants to kind of monitor how many collaborative projects we're able to do across the membership. So this is really about tangible things that have really resulted from the fact that you've worked together. So a few that have already been presented, so I will go through those very quickly, but it's the COP Pavilion. So we've said it before, and again, we thank ICC for your support in this, but it is really the place for the building sector. And in the last one, we've had 40 plus events, 450 speakers, and almost as many organizations. So it was truly a collaborative place and a neutral platform for all stakeholders to come. We've also had a lot of support from our members for the inaugural ICBC ministerial at COP29. We've had a really successful Buildings Breakthrough Roundtable as well. And even at the Berlin Energy Transition Dialogue, where we were able to disseminate the results of the Global Status Report, we had a lot of support from our members, whether there was organizations or countries. So again, we thank you very much for that. And we want to encourage you to do more, use the next 2 days to think about more collaborative projects you want to do together. The real also tangible collaborative work happens in the hubs. I'm not going to go through, oh, sorry, I forgot that I have this. How does that work? Sorry, I was just clicking on my screen and not there, so sorry about that. So here's the kind of relatively exhaustive list of things that the hubs and action groups have done in the past 12 months. You will have breakout sessions about the work that the hubs have done. And here I just want to highlight the work from the action groups and hubs that do not have a dedicated session at the Assembly. So in the passive cooling action group, we're very excited about the forthcoming passive cooling guidelines that have been put together, as well as a practical toolkit. In the Clean Heat Forum, there's also the Clean Heat Policy Toolkit, which has been delivered. In the newer higher education institution action group, they're also now developing an extension school program, which includes École des Ponts, EPFL, UM6, and Cape Town University, and I think another university in India. But as I said, you will have a more detailed conversation about the hub's achievements in the breakouts. So without further ado, I also want to call York Ostermeyer to the stage for him to give you one practical example of collaborative projects we've been doing together at the GlobalABC.
Thank you. I realize I'm rather tall, so. You can hear me. I just speak a little bit louder. I was told I have 2 minutes, but Nicholas just left the room. So until he comes back, I think I can just speak. Thank you for the opportunity. He's about to re-enter the room. I need to speak up. So yeah, together with my colleague Ursula Hartenberger, I'm co-chairing the Data Hub. And what I'm about to show you is the result of our work in that. So in the Data Hub, what we do is we work on the topic of digital building passports. Now, what is a digital building passport? It's a digital repository in which you hold data on your building in a processable, transparent, and robust way. Now, we are very simple people. Why do we believe this is a good thing to do? Because we simply believe better data typically leads to better decisions. It's not very complicated. We currently launched the second version of the CAPSA building passport that we built in this in the hub, and it is informed by a number of projects. So it's really not a two people co-chair idea that then materializes suddenly in a project. So consists of a data collection device, of a database. I'm not going to go into detail on that, simply because there is a training session on that tomorrow. You're welcome to join or approach us individually. So, and I want to show one project which actually did inform the creation of the second version of the building passport. Every person on the table beside the left one and the very right one is a CEO of a social housing organization in Germany. And they came to us and they looked at us and looked at the work that we do in the Data Hub, and they said, we love the work you do. We love the work you do. We want to use that. We need a strategy. We need data. We just need to warn you, we are very, very bad clients. We have no money.
Ja, aber ich glaube, ich weiß gar nicht, wie viel wir
Well, you're welcome. We are very, very bad service provider. We do not have a business plan and we do not have a finished product. I said, okay, well, kind of fits. We work well together. Let's go for it. And we got support from the Eleanor facility of the European Investment Bank for a project that we call GREAT, German residential energy audits for achieving climate targets. Great title. And together these people own 100,000 units in Germany. So we are talking about data collection in 100,000 units. Which means we now have 200 people running around in Germany collecting data, and you learn a lot of that. You learn a lot by just having really at scale people who collect data, because that's the big barrier that we run into. It's not to program a database. Everybody can program a database. How do you get the data in the database? How can you trust the data? How can we then work with the data? We build strategies based on that. And actually, the guy to the left who's joining us in this afternoon is from a finance brokering institution in Germany. So once these people have a strategy, we also link them to finance institutions to actually get them their strategies funded. And we've heard in the beginning of today that there's a general target in Germany on 65% of renewables in new buildings. Let me assure you that none of these people is talking about 65%. Every single one talks about 100%. So it's a very clear sign of when you have the data and you have the evidence and you have the opportunity, you're not stopping halfway. So basically, I need to talk faster. I can talk faster, and Niklas is there. So there is actually another slide which was cut out for time reasons. We won a prize for that initiative. So just imagine me standing there with a big bottle of champagne. And it was a prize awarded from the Finance Association in Germany. When finance people, when banks give you an award, either they have too much money or they have champagne left over. It doesn't mean they necessarily understand what you do. But if they invite you afterwards for a meeting and they want to talk, that says something. So we are very positive. I know I pitched 2 years ago that 2 years ago we want to have 100 buildings in the building passport. And last year we want to have 1,000. And this year we want to have 10,000. And everybody said, yeah, and then 100. I said, yeah, well, in 2030, that has to be the new normal. So we don't have time. And nobody believed me, but I can tell you, good news, we are ahead of the curve. The target for this year is 10,000 and we are at 9,438. So I think we're at least for the upcoming years, we're set positively. The final project, we're not only doing that in Germany. We are also doing that in other countries, and I had great discussions already with Nicholas, who's about to give the next presentation with the Green Building Council in Costa Rica. How can we apply that to other countries? How can we rapidly scale? Because Germany doesn't have 100 million buildings, so in a couple of years, I'm running out of buildings. So we're really looking forward to rapidly scale this, to make it the new normal by 2030, and to cooperate in other countries as well. We've done it in Ghana, we've done it in India. There's 2 great reports coming out of that. And when I say we here, I actually mean Saurabh, who actually compiled these reports. So big shout out to him and a big applause. Amazing. And with that, I want to hand over to the next speaker. To you. I want to invite Celia on stage and hand over. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Hi everyone. Well, sorry. So this target basically is about like how governance joining credible initiative, and on this we've said a lot, and many things will be said as well during the assembly. And I think on this one we can probably say that we have achieved a lot, starting by the building breakthrough. And I would like to really thank Dima, like very deeply, because she's the one holding all of this and like doing her best on this. So it's not new, of course, it has been launched at COP28, but what's new this year is under 2 priority actions. We have now 2 leads, and we have now started to work. So it's priority action number 3 on finance and priority action number 4 on deployment, on research, sorry. But I would say like the very big achievement this year was at COP, and it was the launch of ICBC. So again, many things have been said, and we'll have a dedicated session on this afternoon. But it's only like 4 months old, but we've done a lot already. We've set up a governance, we've set up a strong membership, we've set up a work plan for the next 2 years, and we have really like 3 super good leaders with us, Yves Laurent, Antonio, and Kennedy, because they are really strongly supporting us on a daily basis. So big thanks to you guys. And I would also finish by this is that GlobalABC have endorsed as well the Global Clean Power Alliance, so which is another initiative, high-level one as well. And this one has been launched at the G20 last year in Rio. And this one is basically countries coming together at the ministerial level to support the implementation of the objectives of COP28 on tripling renewable energy and doubling energy efficiency. Thank you. Celia.
So the GlobalABC has supported the development so far up to 2024 of 32 roadmaps. 14 of them adhere to the GlobalABC methodology, covering the key focus areas. The roadmaps cover multiple regions, almost all continents, and serve to bring together a wide variety of stakeholders along the whole buildings value chain around common targets and get them agree on a pathway and a vision towards low carbon and resilient buildings. That's why they are so important. 3 roadmaps were launched last year. We worked with the governments of Bangladesh, Ghana, and Senegal to launch their roadmaps. And these 3 roadmaps are important because they're using our new methodology. We tested with these 3 countries our new step-by-step guide, which brings me to the next slide. We launched last year the new toolkit together with UNOPS. It was developed with UNOPS, UNEP, and UN Habitat with financial support from Germany. This new tool is meant to help countries and guide them step by step, providing detailed tools to guide them in the process of developing roadmaps to decarbonize the sector. It builds on lessons learned from our experience from many years developing roadmaps, and has also collected and was based on contributions received from the GlobalABC Roadmaps Coordination Group. And it has been designed as a collaborative process to engage stakeholders and provides detailed support towards setting the targets, towards identifying the priorities, towards identifying the solution on a short term, medium term, and long term, to really agree on a strategy towards resilient and high efficient and low carbon buildings, with 4 key objectives, which are achieving zero carbon emission, embedded carbon emissions, zero operational emissions, adaptation, well-being, and inclusion. And there is another tool that was also launched and that is complementary to the roadmaps tool that was also developed by the GlobalABC together with the One Planet Network, UNOPS, again, UN Habitat, and UNEP. And this one is funded by Finland. And is the National Circularity Assessment Framework, which provides a framework and structure to help countries assess circularity in the built environment, focusing on 3 objectives, which are achieving resource efficiency, waste reduction, and material reuse. So these new tools are available in the GlobalABC website and are meant to support countries in their process to achieve more circularity in the built environment and low carbon and resilient buildings. Over to you, Konesh.
Thank you, Celia. Hi, everyone. My name is Konesh Naidu. I'm a green building specialist with UNEP. It's amazing to be here. I've seen everyone in like 300 calls over the years, so it's the first time to meet everyone in person. So it's my absolute pleasure. Following Celia, I just want to highlight 2 more toolkits. Essentially, we have a toolkit. The GlobalABC and PEEP have developed a toolkit on NDCs and how countries can integrate ambitious, investable, and inclusive targets in their NDCs. This was done in partnership with PEEP. And then complementary to that, we also have the NDC scorecard, which was developed by the World Green Building Council. And this is my 30 seconds. I would now like to call Nicholas to come and present. Thank you.
Hello. I'm going to try and be as brief as I can. As York mentioned, I do have the capacity to speak very quickly, so I'll engage my Chilean drive here and we'll go very quickly. The Green Building Council of Costa Rica was very excited about this project. You can ask Anna Zineker that I've been hounding her for about 3 years for it to start. Finally, it did. Thank you. So to go very quickly, in general terms, to give you some context. Okay, this doesn't have. Okay, thank you. Very general terms, this is the project. There's some general information there for those of you who don't know it. But just to give you an idea very quickly, what was very attractive about the project for us is that it focuses on resilience and energy efficiency. And in Central America right now, and in the Caribbean region, this is a very important topic because you can engage almost any government on these topics, no matter what political party is in power. So this gives us a chance to engage different areas, state, local, and federal. Let's see. Given that Costa Rica has a very clean energy grid, obviously, when we can focus on the design and construction phases as well as operation, this helps us quite a bit because we can really move the needle in emissions. Obviously, operation is always important as well, but we have that head start in terms of embodied carbon, so this helps us quite a bit and makes this project very important for us, not only with the government, but also the private sector. I'm going to skip a few points here because York took up all of my time. Important to note as well that we just started. Some countries have started a little earlier, but in Costa Rica, the governance committee had our first meeting in early February. So we're just getting started in the process and trying to develop what our strategy will be and in what direction we should go with this. Okay, we do know that we are going to focus very strongly on. We want to have very strong public and private, not only participation, but also collaboration. This is important because sometimes we say we're listening to the other party, but we're not really implementing their ideas, and we want to really generate that synergy from the beginning. Okay, so here, the focal point for the country is the Ministry of Energy. They have a subdirectorate, which is the energy division of the environment, and they have a directorate focusing on this. But there is also the big help here is that we also have the Ministry of Housing and Urban Settlements, and they're supporting very strongly, as well as other government agencies. So there's a very strong, let's say, transversal buy-in from the government, and this helps us quite a bit to make sure that all the interested parties are at the table. In the past, Costa Rica has benefited from, let's say, fairly ambitious, high-level national government strategies, going back to reforestation strategies in the 60s and 70s that were very successful, up to more recently where we have the national decarbonization plans and things like this. So in general terms, we do tend to benefit from high-level government ambition. Where we have our trouble is with linkage. We tend to have lots of high-level commitments and things that look really good in press conferences, but where the rubber meets the road, where we have that traction, that impact, is where we sometimes suffer because we have all these loose ends all over the place and they don't really talk to each other. So when private sector wants to replicate and come on board, they're not really sure where they should go or what they should be aligning with. This is one of the main objectives we're going to try and do through this project. Right now, this linkage becomes very important to us because as a Green Building Council, several Green Building Councils have learned through the different data that we have nowadays, we can now, let's say, prove to the government and to the private sector what an important role the built environment has and how this can really move the scale at a fairly cost-effective way in terms of meeting our goals, both for mitigation and adaptation. So this is what we're going to try and leverage as much as we can to make this move quite quickly in terms of the things we want to do and how we want to do them. Obviously, an important part of this will be using the GlobalABC resources such as the GSRs and the roadmaps that we have available. We can see what ideas we can steal and name them as our own creative thinkfulness, and also how we can also accelerate and leapfrog to the future to make sure we move things faster than we would do without those resources. And finally, the green building movement in Costa Rica has been accelerating quite a bit in the last few years. The Green Building Council of Costa Rica exists for 13 years now, but in the last 3 or 4, we've been really able to be successful in helping understand how the private sector needs the public sector and vice versa. This has been fairly polarized in all of our recent history, and just more recently in the last maybe 3 to 5 years is where we've been seeing this. So now it's really easy for us to convene both of these sectors to the table and get them together. And I think the PEEP project is very well structured in that way where it does promote that in terms of, I won't go into the details now, but in terms of we have financing for private sector, for public sector, technical assistance, and so on and so forth. So in that sense, the timing is perfect for the project for where we are today in terms of the transformation we're doing at a country level. Final slide. In regards to the aforementioned strategies and things that we have, the idea is to bring these together now and see how we can set up the structure for the project for the next 5 years, making sure we do achieve that linkage that I mentioned. Okay, so here what we're trying to do to get started, at least what we did was kind of reverse engineer. We said, where do we want to be at the end of the project? And what has to happen for us to, where should we start to get there? Okay, so basically in doing that, the government realized how important it is to set milestones for short and midterm. This is a very important thing for us here because in developing countries, we've been trained to make most of our decisions based on very short term and, basically addressing the immediate necessity. And thinking a little bit more mid or long term is harder for us, both for private and public sector. So in this exercise that we've done, we've been able to do that, and that helps us give us a good starting point. Now, finally, in that sense, knowing where we want to start and how we want to start to structure that strategy, the last point that I'm going to mention is we've been discussing more recently, maybe in the last 2 meetings, we've been discussing how can we try and protect the strategy moving forward. Because in Costa Rica, we have 4-year government periods. And as in many countries in Latin America, we're seeing quite a bit of sway to extremes between one election and the other. So we need to know how we can protect this strategy so that it can move forward no matter which political party is is in power. The idea originally was to bulletproof the strategy and make sure that that doesn't happen no matter who wins the elections, but we already realized that that's unrealistic. So right now, what we're working on is how we can do the best possible strategy that we can, making it feasible, but also not waiting forever to get started looking for the perfect. So right now, that's where we are. That's what we want to start with. And as soon as that's done within the next couple of months, we're going to start with our national baseline and other things that I mentioned there. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. I will briefly, so my name is Malia. I will briefly talk about the subnational action group that we launched last summer, thanks to the support of BMWK. And now that it's called by UNEP, UNHABITAT, ICLE, and GIZ. This is one of the key priorities of this year to support the integration of subnationals policy making, and we launch our new position paper tomorrow during the breakout. So join this session. Thank you.
Everyone, I'm back. Now I'm going to talk about how the GlobalABC is supporting the private sector transition. We looked at this from two different lenses. The first one being the different materials and technologies that are out there, and the second one being in terms of advocacy and partnerships. I'm not going to go into detail into all of these things, but just to highlight the work of the bio-based material working group that essentially developed a compendium that looks at material manufacturers and buildings, actual buildings that have incorporated bio-based and earth-based materials. The compendium was launched at COP. And we are still developing the report, but that's forthcoming. Also to highlight GCCA's report, and that report that was launched last year has important technologies that highlight carbon capture and the potential of carbon capture in the buildings and construction sector. And then I will now talk about in terms of advocacy and partnerships. Of course, we have Building to COP. We had Rona Kamir, who's from WBCST. So WBCST and Bain & Company essentially launched a report, which is the Business Breakthrough Barometer. And finally, just to mention the partnership between GlobalABC and the World GBC. Essentially, we signed an MOU that leverages on World GBC's network and the GlobalABC's network and solidifies our partnership. I would now like to call on Yosha. I hope I pronounced that correctly. Yeah, okay.
Okay, hello. My name is Joscha Rosenbusch. I'm working with the Partnership for Energy Efficiency in Buildings. Nice to meet you all here. I'm quite new to the team, so this is basically my possibility also to introduce myself. I'm working with Anna Zinica, who you might know, who has been around quite some often. So the PEEP is one of the implementing programs of the GlobalABC. I think you have heard of the partnership already. It's a French-German initiative. Actually, our both co-chairs are sitting here in the first row. We are operating in 21 developing countries and emerging economies, and we are basically deploying two facilities. One is a financing facility that is implemented by the French Development Bank, AFD, who provides financing for large-scale investments in the banking sector, and the enabling facility, which is implemented mainly by GIZ, operating in most of the same countries. We are also co-funded by the European Commission and by the GCF in the context of the PEEP Cool program that we are implementing. We are also contributing as PEEP to the Building Breakthrough and the Finance Hub of the GlobalABC, which is co-chaired by my colleague Anna Zinica from PEEP. So in this work, we have developed this toolbox for national development banks. This has been developed in cooperation with the FIX, so the Finance in Common Summit. And there is, as you see on the top, this Coalition for Social Investment, which is a subgroup of this initiative. And what we try to do with this toolbox is to mainstream energy efficiency in the operations of development banks, national development banks, in their investments into social infrastructure. So meaning social housing, educational facilities, hospitals, etc. And this toolbox includes chapters on best practices, methodologies and tools, and also 14 case studies of actual programs that have been run and implemented by development banks, national development banks in developing countries. The toolbox has been launched 2 months back at this FIX summit in South Africa. So it's brand new. You can download it on our website. And if you want to engage and have more information about it, please talk to Anna or to myself so we can maybe see if we can further collaborate on this. Thanks. And I'm handing over to Tom.
Well, I don't know if there are any questions, but I think in the interest of time, we probably move on because many of the things that were discussed here will have other opportunities to discuss about them in the sessions. And I didn't check exactly what time it is now. But I think, yeah, we have about 45 minutes to complete, so we can have some time to have still questions at the end of this session. But I want to thank my colleagues, but then also, of course, the different members that came here to quickly present some of the work that we're doing. This is definitely not exhaustive. This is showing just the tip of the iceberg in a way. There's quite a lot of more work happening through the different working groups, and some of that you will see actually more specifically during the 2 days in the sessions where you will have a chance to be in a more interactive setting also, because of course here you have a number of people coming on board and speaking to you, but in the rest of the day and then also tomorrow there will be actually more sessions where also the members will actually break out in some groups and discuss very specific areas and topics. This afternoon we'll be specifically talking about the buildings breakthrough, of course.